All right. Hello, hello, hello. And yep, we are live and y'all can hear me and see me. So welcome to my special live stream episode that I thought I would do totally out of the blue. I'm sorry I wasn't able to give any heads up on this, but it was just something I've been wanting to do for a couple days, but I went out of town to New York this weekend and did not have any time to do anything like this. Because I was doing a talk on Scientology and getting out of that and cults and cult thinking and all that kind of thing for the Ethical Society out in White Plains, New York. So I went out there for the weekend. And now I'm back. And Danny Masterson's trial. Danny Masterson is a Scientologist and a celebrity. And you may have seen him on various shows and whatnot. And if you're watching this show, odds are you've heard about his trial for sexual assault/rape against numerous accusers, many of whom were former Scientologists. And Danny Masterson, being a Scientologist in good standing, he is afforded a great deal of protection by the Church of Scientology. And in fact, it's come up during the trial that, and let me throw your comments up on the screen here so we can see what y'all are saying as we're going here since we started the live stream. This is not a Q&A show, and I won't be looking for, in the comments, questions to answer necessarily, but I wanted to do it live because I wanted to see some feedback from y'all. Hey, Australia. Yes, and I wanted to go over with you guys some of the things that have been coming up in the trial of Masterson and some of the backstory or the framework that is being discussed of Scientology's ethics and justice system. And so I thought I would dedicate some time and break down some concepts for you guys and show you a few quotes from L. Ron Hubbard, right from his materials, to demonstrate what it is that Scientology is all about when it comes to these words and these ideas of ethics and justice. Because, well, we have these women who were, three of the four accusers were Scientologists, and they were therefore under the authority and strictures of the Church of Scientology. And they went to their church for help, and according to their testimony and according to their stories, the Church of Scientology did not help them. And in fact, the ethics officers of the Church of Scientology decided that they were not worthy of being listened to, that they needed to be shut up and shut down, and the church basically took Masterson's side on the whole thing and attempted to take actions, legal and otherwise, to shut the whole thing down and not let any reports about Masterson sexually assaulting people get out into the public. And this was all back in the early 2000s. And if you all have been keeping up with the trial, you know all the specifics of this, but that's just the kind of what we're looking at here. And hey, Orlando, wow, Philippines, awesome. Ontario, seeing folks come on board here. Thank you for that super chat, Jims, awesome. So I definitely want to thank you for that. Wow, Brazil, this is awesome. Lots of viewers from lots of places. So some of you are familiar with some of the concepts of Scientology's justice. For example, you pulled it in and, you know, you're always responsible for your own condition and all that sort of thing. And I wanted to kind of take some time to clarify what this is all about because unfortunately, and this has been a point of real frustration for me in reading the updates coming out from Tony Ortega, who is on site in Los Angeles right now. I mean, just before this posted, a new email appeared in my inbox, the latest updates. And he has been keeping sort of transcript tabs of the trial every day as it's been going and reporting from, you know, on the ground there. And that's how we've been keeping up with what's been happening. But it's been very frustrating for me as a former Scientologist and former Sea Org member. I was involved with Scientology for an awful long time. I grew up in it. And I joined the Sea Org when I was 25 years old, and I worked for that group for 17 years. And that's the billion-year contract people. Those are the fanatics of Scientology. And I think you'll agree with me after I go over some Hubbard issues with you, why I use the word fanatic. because these are not people who are turn the other cheek or see Scientology as just another religion, or think that people who come after Scientology in any way, for any reason whatsoever, those people are enemies of Scientology. They're not just people who disagree. They're not just critics. They're not just people who have another view. There is no such thing in Scientology as tolerance or understanding of other practices or other religions or other ideas. Scientology is a totalist belief system. You are fully in. And Hubbard makes it abundantly clear in a policy letter called Keeping Scientology Working that there is no such thing as being half in and half out of Scientology. You're either with us or you are against us. And the language that he uses on this is crystal clear. And notice that Hubbard and his writings are all about stressing how the organization is supposed to continue and survive, not so much individual Scientologists. The key policy letter, the key dogma, you could say, or fundamental piece of, God, I hate using these religious words, but Scientology is a recognized religion, and so I get to. One of the key scriptures in Scientology is it's called Keeping Scientology Working. And in order to keep this thing going, they have to have loyalty, dedication, and unwavering, unthinking support. Because Scientology offers, a whole array of courses and what they loosely refer to as counseling, auditing. And these services cost money. And there is a great deal of money that has rolled in over the decades through the coffers and into the coffers of Scientology. It is, at the end of the day, a money-making scam. And all of the practices and all the auditing and all the classwork and all the books and lectures and everything else from L. Ron Hubbard, all of that stuff is just window dressing to bring the money in. And people dedicate their lives to this, not knowing that all of that is just window dressing and nonsense to keep them busy and keep them working and not questioning or asking what's actually going on. And I was part of that for decades of my life, so I speak from experience on this point. All right, so just want to kind of intro what we're talking about here with Scientology and with this court case. So now let's go ahead and talk about how is it that the Church of Scientology controls its membership? What do they actually do? Well, there's a lot that they do, and there's no one video that's ever going to be able to break it all down for you. Even the Going Clear documentary or Scientology in the Aftermath, even 3 seasons of documentary about Scientology from people who were in it, couldn't really communicate the full breadth and scope of it. It's huge. It's complicated. It is involved. There are thousands of pages of writings and lectures from Hubbard that total in the thousands. I think there's something like 5,000 lectures. The guy had an ability to write and put out a ton of stuff. And that alone is one of the reasons why people stay in and get stuck in and caught up in it, is there's so much there. They think there must be legitimacy to this. It couldn't be possible that somebody could, like an L. Ron Hubbard, could write all this work, give all these lectures, and there's really nothing to it. Unfortunately, the truth is that there really isn't a whole lot to it outside of an awful lot of control mechanisms and thought reform techniques and hypnotism and stuff like that. I mean, it's dark, seedy stuff. So I'm not even going to pretend here in the next, I think we're going to be talking for about an hour here or so if I have my timing right. I don't think I'm going to be able to do justice to the entire scope of Scientology's ethics and justice system. It is an extensive system, and there's a lot to it. But I do want to cover the fundamentals of it and some of the basics and tie it into this court case. So let's go ahead and get to that. First off, let's go ahead and take a look at the purpose of ethics as directed by L. Ron Hubbard. And this is a quote from him. You can see that I'm showing you an excerpt from a policy letter, and these are the issue types that L. Ron Hubbard wrote. He wrote thousands of policy letters, or had his name put on thousands of policy letters that maybe some other people wrote too. And they are always listed out as HCO policy letter. That means Hubbard Communications Office. That's merely the place where they originated from. It was L. Ron Hubbard. And on June 1968, Hubbard wrote this issue called Ethics. And he said, the purpose of ethics is to remove counterintentions from the environment. Just looking at some of the comments here as we're going. Okay, to remove counterintentions from the environment, and having accomplished that, the purpose becomes to remove other intentionedness from the environment. Thus, progress can be made by all. Okay, so what does he mean here? What's he talking about? Well, sorry about that. There we are, back to there. Sorry, I had to get the right screen. I hit the wrong buttons there. When we're talking about counter intention and other intention, what we mean is some other purpose line or direction than the one Scientology, the church, is going in. The Church of Scientology has specific goals and purposes and ideas and things it wants to do, mainly making money. As I mentioned, it is a money-making scam. And if something gets in the way of that money flow, or bringing people in, or making them Scientologists, or making them more dedicated, more indoctrinated, more brainwashed, if you will, if something gets in the way of that, it's counterintention. Hubbard talked often about intention. He was big on that term, and there are reasons for that, which we won't have to get into today, but intention is your will to accomplish or do something. And Hubbard's intention for Scientology is that it take over the world, and that everybody has L. Ron Hubbard's name on their lips. That's what he was all about. He wanted to be immortal, and he figured that more people who knew him, practiced his practices, said his name, paid money for his causes, that was his brand of immortality. And so that's the intention of Scientology, is clear the planet, get Scientologists doing Scientology more and more and more, right? That's kind of the purpose line. And if you're a Scientologist, then the way you look at this is you go, okay, well, I'm putting in my time, I'm going to the classes, I'm doing my auditing, I'm paying my dues, I'm contributing to the group, the organization, I'm being a good Scientologist. I am on purpose. Okay, I'm on the same purpose line as Scientology. They have these little funny sayings, and being on purpose is one of them. Counterintention is when you are off purpose, when you are doing something that is not what the church wants, what Scientology or L. Ron Hubbard have written down or spoken or intended. And now, of course, this is translated over, since L. Ron Hubbard died back in the 1980s, this is translated over to what David Miscavige, the church leader, wants. It's his intention that drives Scientology forward. That's how Scientologists look at it and think about it. And so they want to be on purpose. They want to be good little Scientologists. And the way to do that is cooperate with what you're told to do, follow the directions, demonstrate loyalty, pay your money, be a good group member. And being a good group member in Scientology is all about compliance. I can't really stress that enough. It is really all about following directions and orders. And a lot of the techniques that are used in the Scientology auditing processes are compliance techniques. They are all about training and conditioning Scientologists to become compliant. Thank you, Blood Bucket, for that very generous super chat. Very much appreciate that. Okay, good. When it's in a foreign denominator, I'm never sure how much exactly that is, but it's always nice to get support, so thank you. Okay, so getting back to this other intentionness, this counter-intention and other intentionness, The purpose of ethics in Scientology is not to aid you, assist you, help you to survive better. Okay, let's be super clear about that. The purpose of ethics is to remove counter intentions from the environment. If something's getting in the way of Scientology and its mission, the job of the ethics section of the organization, and there's a whole department in every single Scientology organization that is headed up by an ethics officer. And they have many of them. And those ethics officers' job is to remove counterintention from the environment. So if you're getting in the way of Scientology or its mission, even if you're a Scientologist, especially if you're a Scientologist, the ethics officer is going to want to see you and is going to want to deal with you and remove that counterintention. And we're going to get into some of the ways that they go about doing that. But I wanted to first kind of get these concepts across. This is really important. They are not about helping you as an individual. That's just flowery language that gets used every now and again. But L. Ron Hubbard's policies and his writings on this are crystal clear. And so if it's a question of an individual Scientologist and the rules and the strictures and the guidelines of Scientology, Scientology is going to win out 100% of the time. And the individual Scientologist who might have questions, concerns, criticisms, problems or issues with what's going on, well, they're going to get mowed over. Because the job of the ethics officer is to remove that guy or girl if they're getting in the way. All right. That is really, really important. Oh, Dylan, thank you very much for that super chat. Very appreciated. All right. So, and this is all having to do with the internal rule system of Scientology. And I'm going to go over some of those rules with you in a bit. So the other concept that I wanted to get across here is responsibility. All right. Now this definition of responsibility is right out of, I'm actually showing you excerpts from the book, Introduction to Scientology Ethics. And this book, by the way, has been entered in full as evidence in the court case against Masterson. So all of this is potentially available to the lawyers, but if you've been following Tony Ortega's reporting, then you know that the judge and the lawyers are hyper detail oriented as to what can and cannot be communicated in the courtroom about Scientology. So a lot of this is not making it in the courtroom, and that's why I wanted to do this video. So the non-recognition and denial of the right of intervention between oneself and any being, idea, matter, energy, space, time, or form, and the assumption of full right of determination over it. Now, there's a couple key things there. That is a confusing statement, and Scientologists, let me come back to me here for a second. Scientologists spend an awful lot of time deconstructing, taking that statement apart, trying to figure out what the hell it means, because there's a lot there. But basically, the summary of it is, if you in Scientology are responsible for something, then you do not recognize anybody else's right to get between you and it, and you assume full right of determination over it. Full right. Let's take a look at that again. You have here the assumption of full right of determination over it. Full responsibility is not fault. It is recognition of being cause. All right. Now, cause. That's another very important word in Scientology. It is all about being in the driver's seat in your life and being the causative agent of what's going on in your life. That's sort of the carrot that people are given in Scientology, is they're chasing after this idea that they're going to be able to be at cause over everything in their life. They won't no longer be affected by, bad news and horrible events happening and bad weather and getting fired and, kids screaming and all this stuff. They're going to get themselves into a place where they're going to be responsible. They're going to be OT, operating thetans. Thetan is the word for a spirit in Scientology, and the idea is that you are ascending levels of of spiritual awareness by doing the auditing in Scientology. What it's really doing to you is driving you further into unawareness and an inability to handle your life. But that's not what Scientologists are sold on. They're sold on the idea that by becoming further and further indoctrinated in Scientology and further agreeing with L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology, they are becoming freer and freer, which is a very odd set of circumstances, but that's how it is. So responsibility is all about being at cause. I'm the one who did it. I'm the one who is in charge of this. I'm the one who is at cause here. And so what this means, how this translates in Scientology, is that you are always responsible for your own condition. Something happened to you, it's on you. You're the one who made that happen. You're the one who pulled it in. Like literally pulled it into yourself. This has to do with energy flows. L. Ron Hubbard actually explains this in terms of energy that you as a spirit are putting off, and you have tractor beams and pressor beams, and you pull things and push things in and out of your existence using energy as a spirit. And this is all, old school Scientology. This is explained back in the 50s. And so this expression of pulling it in is a Scientology expression for you being responsible for the circumstances of your life. And that means if somebody does something horrible to you, it's on you. Now, that doesn't mean that they're blameless and that Scientologists don't look at, other people as victimizers, or, if somebody, walked up to a 7-year-old and just slapped him silly, a Scientologist would definitely have something to say about that. They're not going to just stand there and go, well, the kid pulled it in. It's not quite that gross, okay? But when you're dealing with something like Masterson and his accusers, the ethics officer who dealt with those women before they were, broke out of that whole crazy thought reform situation, before they got out of that system of control, they were being told that their accusations were indicative of the fact that they were doing bad things because they were ultimately responsible for their condition. And they put themselves there. They drank the alcohol. They're friends with Masterson. Their girlfriends were, in a relationship. So really, it's kind of on you, isn't it? Kind of thing. This is the whole approach that ethics uses in Scientology, is demonstrating to you how you're the one who is responsible at cause for the things that happen to you. And the idea, the philosophical underpinning of this is, how are you supposed to be able to change a condition or do something about it if you can't be responsible for it and acknowledge that you are the one who's causing it? And in lots of instances in life, that makes sense. Because there's a lot of things we do in life that are dumb or stupid, or we didn't know better, and we end up being responsible for really dumb stuff. That's all true. But like everything else in Scientology, you can take that sensible idea and you can dial it up to 11 so it's always true under every circumstance, no matter what's happening, and screw the context. You're responsible, okay? And this is a basic, fundamental principle of Scientology, which is why I'm harping on it here. Okay, responsibility there. Now, another thing we need to cover. Okay, let's go back to our quotes, and we go to another fun quote from L. Ron Hubbard. This is something called blow-offs, and I just wanted to give you this as another example of how Scientologists think about things, okay, in terms of responsibility and wrongdoing. Hubbard says that Scientology technology includes the factual explanation of departures, sudden and relatively unexplained, from sessions, posts, jobs, locations, and areas. All right? And what is... So Hubbard claims here that they have figured out in Scientology why it is that people just leave and don't want to be part of groups or activities or relationships anymore. They've got the answer to every one of those situations where people blow off, they take off, they leave. What's the answer? What could it be? Well, people leave because of their own overts and withholds. There it is in all capital letters. This is the factual fact and the hardbound rule. A man with a clean heart can't be hurt. The man or woman who must become a victim and depart is departing because of his or her own overts and withholds. It doesn't matter whether the person is departing from a town or a job or a session, the cause is the same. Almost anyone, no matter his position, can remedy a situation, no matter what's wrong, if he or she really wants to. When the person no longer wants to remedy it, his own overt acts and withholds against the others involved in the situation have lowered his own ability to be responsible for it. Therefore, he or she does not remedy the situation. Departure is the only apparent answer. So how do you think, knowing that now, and that's dogma of Scientology. These things I'm showing you are not optional ideas in Scientology. This is as hardcore as it gets. So Scientologists are looking at these women, these accusers of Danny Masterson, and they're applying that blow-offs data to them. Oh, they only left Scientology because, sorry, got to get rid of a troll here. They only left Scientology and they're only accusing Masterson of these vicious crimes because of their own overts. And what's an overt in Scientology? It's a bad act. It's a moral transgression. It's something you do that harms or is destructive to other people or other things or even yourself. And that's called an overt. It's a sin. It's a bad thing. And we all commit sins. We're all guilty. We all have guilty consciences. We have all done bad things. You agree to morals, you agree to rules, and then you break them. And it happens all the time, and we all do it. And Hubbard makes a big, big deal. There's a lot of guilt induction in Scientology because where you break rules, sometimes there's consequences, sometimes there's not. Sometimes the context calls for you to, and other times not. In other words, it's not all absolute. It's not all so black and white. But in Scientology, these things are very black and white. And so if you commit overts against Joe, Bill, Sue, Sally, whatever, against the Church of Scientology, you're going to leave. You're going to take off. And the only reason you're doing that is because of your overts. You're the one who's responsible. Scientology may have victimized you up one side and down the other. Doesn't matter. It's your overts that caused you to leave, not what Scientology did to you. And this is honestly how Scientologists think about this stuff. So they have no sympathy or understanding or tolerance or compassion for these women or for people who claim while they're even in Scientology that they were victimized. Oh, you're just being a victim. Hubbard even mentions it in the quote. He says there, bring this up for a second, because of his, where's that victim line there? Yes, the man or woman who must become a victim and depart, right? That's the attitude. Oh, well, you just have to be a victim. You're just a victim. And victim in Scientology is a bad word. It's another one of those words with heavy connotations. There are no victims in Scientology. If you're a victim, that means you've got overts. And the remedy for that is to go sit in a room and write them down in a ream of paper, or go hold the e-meter cans and confess all of your overts, all of your sins, right? And there is a very methodical, very exact process to pull your sins from you, and that's called sec checking or security checking. And oh boy, is that fun stuff. So you have overts, right? And you have this whole blow-offs thing, and this is kind of fundamental to Scientologist thinking, okay? And this is the approach that ethics officers will use when dealing with Scientologists who are complaining or critical or fault-finding or having an issue with someone or something else. Is they're like, oh, you're being critical. You're saying this person's bad and wrong and has harmed you and has done all these bad things to you. Well, really, I know the only reason for that is because of your own overts. So why don't you sit down and write down your overts, right? Because clearly that's the problem here. Okay. Oh, thank you for that super chat, meowsers. Okay. From the UK even. That's awesome. All right. So there's another thing we're going to talk about now. And I didn't pull lots of quotes on this one, so I'm just going to describe it to you. And that is knowledge reports, or KRs. This has come up in the case, in the testimony. And if you've been following the Masterson case, then you might have heard about these reports. What's this all about? Well, not only does Scientology have this no victim policy where you cannot ever have had anything bad done to you, it's always what you did, but there is a system of reporting that goes on in Scientology, and I can't really stress to you, having lived in that system for decades, just how invasive and routine it is. It's a real kind of Nazi kind of system. And I don't want to use that word, just throw it around, but it just, you got to kind of go there to get the idea of how intrusive, how in Scientology, you don't have a right to privacy. First off, let's kind of get that out of the way. As a Scientologist, your relationship with the Church of Scientology is one of full transparency. There is never any excuse, reason, or justification for you to have a secret or to keep anything from Scientology or its officials. So just get that idea out of your mind right now. There's no such thing as privacy. You don't have a right to privacy. You are expected, as a process, as part of the process of doing Scientology, to freely confess all of your thoughts and ideas and deeds and misdeeds in this life and in your past lives. And it's only through this kind of confession, Hubbard says, that you will achieve total personal spiritual freedom. Not sure exactly why. I mean, there are lots of whys I could get into, but the bottom line is, why would you have to do that in order to achieve spiritual freedom? These two things don't inherently go hand in hand, but Hubbard ties them together very closely. And he started doing this in the 1960s, by the way, after his own son took off from Scientology. His son blew off. And Hubbard formulated all of that policy at that time. He was furious. He felt so betrayed. It was such a stab to the heart of the loyalty that he was supposed to be getting from his family, from his own son. But his own son couldn't take it anymore. The lies, the deception, the nonsense, and he left. This is back in 1959. And Hubbard went on a tear about this business of confessing, and he never let it go because he found out what a powerful control mechanism it is to own people by their misdeeds. You got them by the neck and you never let go. It is a powerful control mechanism, confession. And this is something that the Chinese, learned after their Maoist revolution. This is something that is well known in North Korea and in various places where they engage in this kind of thought reform, as they use confession as a control mechanism. And Scientology loves doing this. Okay, they are all about confessing. Okay, so if you're not confessing, in order to make sure everybody's on the up and up and everybody's following all the rules and being a good Scientologist, there's this reporting system. And the way it works is each individual Scientologist is told about or shown the policies where if you have knowledge of someone else's misdeeds or overts, if you will, where they're breaking the rules, going on the internet and watching Leah's show, talking trash about Hubbard, maybe complaining even, not even talking trash, just, I'm not happy with my services. I'm not, maybe in a moment of friendly conversation between two Scientologists who are friends, Maybe they've been friends for years, lifelong buddies even. But if they're Scientologists first and friends second. You can't, very important. So if Joe is telling Bill one fine day in an unguarded moment that he's not happy with his services or with what's going on at the org, or down at the church, I should say, the org, or if he is not happy with their COVID protocols, or doesn't like how slow the service is going, or doesn't like the prices, or whatever it is he might complain about. If Joe is telling Bill this, then Bill's job is to, okay, yeah, thank you very much. Wow, that's awful. Go write it down. And Bill's actually not even supposed to agree with Joe. Bill's supposed to go, hey, man, you're being counter intention. You're being other intention. You're not with the program, right? You're supposed to call him out. But whether he does or doesn't, Bill's duty as a good Scientologist is to write a report on Joe and put his name on it. Knowledge report, Joe Schmo. In a conversation today, Joe told me that he was unhappy with the org services and he was complaining bitterly, and this indicates that Joe's probably got overts against the org, but minimally he has to report what Joe said. And it's non-optimum behavior, see? It's critical behavior. It's Joe not happy. So Joe needs a workover. Joe needs some handling, see? And the only way that the church is going to find out about Joe's secret thinking is for Bill to report him. So Bill does. And this is routine, common, everyday activity in Scientology. And of course, it quickly results in every single Scientologist always not being totally sure what they can say to who. Can I trust Bill? Is Bill going to report me? Well, it happens all the time. Friendships have even been broken up over this kind of thing. So these reports, though, are mandated because the punishment is that if an ethics officer at the local church pulls in Joe, and Joe starts bitching and moaning to him and complaining, and the ethics officer goes, whoa, we got an overt case here, and makes him start writing up all his OWs, his overts and withholds, his OWs. There's so much language here. If he does that, and it comes up in the process that Bill was telling Joe all about this, Joe was telling Bill, and Bill didn't write a report about it, then the ethics officer is going to hold Bill liable for the same punishment that he's giving to Joe. Bill needs to report it. Otherwise, Bill is responsible and will be held liable and will be punished. So that's why Scientologists are kind of, goosed to do this, is they don't want to get in trouble. And so they'll write up their friends, their family members, whoever they need to or want to report them to Scientology. And they will report various infractions or rule breakage or complaining and fault finding, which, as in the comments there, as they say, that is called natter in Scientology. If you're nattering, Hubbard adopted that word into Scientology for complaining, fault finding, bitching, and moaning. Okay. So if you're nattering, that means you got overts, and that means I got to write you up, because you're really not being responsible for your own overts. You're claiming to be a victim and that Scientology is somehow wronging you. Well, it can't be, because the Church of Scientology is perfect, see, and it never makes any mistakes. It's only the members who do. This is 100% the attitude in this organization, in this group, and I hope it's clear already why it is that we might call this group a destructive cult. This is very controlling behavior, and it's very off the rails. Okay. So then we have, yes. This other quote I wanted to show you guys. So let's go back to the quotes page here and go to this one. Yes. At the root of every bad condition will be found a suppressive person. Okay. So let's say that, locate your, okay. So we got a couple words to look up here. Locate your potential trouble sources By locating passers of rumors, etc., then locate the suppressive and shoot. Calm reigns, tech is in, and that's all one means to accomplish. Okay, so what am I'm showing you a quote there, again, from the ethics book, and this has to do with what the ethics officer is supposed to do. What's his job? What does it mean, root out counter-intention and other intention? Well, it means find the suppressive person. Because at the root of every single bad condition, it's never an accident, it's never a contextual situation, it's never circumstances, it's never some bad accident, it's never chance, it's never random. Bad conditions are always brought about because of a suppressive person. You can see almost immediately here the immediate jump to scapegoating people. Okay, if there's some bad non-optimum situation, the production is down this week, things aren't going well, the front of the building falls off. I mean, whatever it is, some suppressive person is always at the root of that, and they have to be found and dealt with. And this is again standard Scientology thinking. And the ethics officer's job is not to help or assist this Scientologist who's in need or trouble. His job is to find the suppressive, and maybe the person sitting in front of him is the suppressive, right? Maybe the Scientologist is the suppressive. And in the case of Danny Masterson and these women, the ethics officer absolutely, and there were a few of them, all of them absolutely were looking at these women as the potential suppressive. Because it sure as hell wasn't Danny Masterson who was the suppressive, and we'll get into why in a minute. But it wasn't, right? It couldn't be him. It had to be these accusers. And with this background of no victims, you're always responsible for your own condition, you can see why an ethics officer easily justifies going after people who truly have been victimized, people who have been harmed, wronged by Scientology, by Danny Masterson, by some other Scientologist, by David Miscavige. Right? This is why in Scientology, nobody's ever going to believe you if you say David Miscavige harmed you or did something bad or wrong to you. Right? It can't be. It simply cannot be true that that's the case. You are the suppressive, because David Miscavige can never be the suppressive. This kind of absolutist, totalist thinking is what cults are all about. So this was this quote here about the suppressive being at the root of that condition means that the person who is in front of you, being a victim, acting like they're the ones who have been done to, they're either a suppressive person or they are a potential trouble source, right? Because they're the people who are passing on rumors. They're the people who are spreading. Okay, we're going to introduce another word now, and this is the most important word I think we're going to cover here, other than suppressive. This word is n-theta. I was remarking on this when I was doing my talk this weekend, because it dawned on me how it's almost push button. It's such a trigger word in Scientology, the word n-theta. So the word means bad news. The word means something that is confused, chaos, bad news, rumors, ill tidings, if you will, right? It's things that subjects or under discussion or topics or statements that are lies, that are black propaganda, that are rumors, that are meant to create dissent or chaos or confusion. It would be, n-theta would be the very epitome of counter-intention, right? In Scientology, they always want things to be good news. Everything's wonderful. It's all great. There's no problems here. You're just popping up to OT at warp speed, and anything that gets in your way would be n-theta. It would be bad. It would be wrong. Like Leah and Mike and me, we're just trying to enter all these roadblocks into people's progress in Scientology. Therefore, our content and everything we have to say is n-theta. And in Scientology, you locate potential trouble sources, people who are potentially troublesome to the organization. That's why they're called potential trouble sources, because they're going to cause trouble for Scientology. And the kind of trouble they could cause is rumor mongering or spreading, n-theta about Scientology. But what if that n-theta is true? What if they're actually saying true things? What if Danny Masterson really did rape them? It's n-theta, see? I don't want... And there's no faster way to shut down a conversation in Scientology or an entire topic of discussion than to label it n-theta. And as somebody noted in the comments, they can't use the R word. They couldn't even say the word rape in talking to their ethics officers and seeking help from their church with another Scientologist. They could not even say the word for what happened to them because it's n-theta, see? And this is Thought Reform 101. This is you imbue a word with that much power, and then you forbid anyone to go anywhere near it. And this is thought policing. This is how it happens, is you just label it n-theta, and you can't talk about it. You're not even supposed to think about it. And in fact, it becomes an ethics matter if you do. You become the target. Just for talking, just for saying words, just for contemplating ideas, you become a target of the ethics officer because you are dealing in n-theta. And we can't have any of that around here. So, you see, the job of ethics is no longer a job of justice or fairness or fair play. It's about protecting the organization first, protecting Scientology and its good name and its repute, and keeping all that counter intention and other intention and n-theta off the lines. We're not going to have any of that here. And that's why these women got shut down, or that's how these women, I should say, got shut down. Now let's go ahead and get into why they got shut down. And this will be a little bit more on the quotes here. So let's go to a couple concepts. First is Upstats, okay? Now I put the whole page here. And I'm not going to necessarily, well, maybe I'm going to have to read a bit of this. All right, so let's go over this. This is another concept in Scientology that is really important, is this idea of production, statistics, up statistics, down statistics. Let's pop back over here to me for a second. What are we talking about? Well, we're talking about producing for Scientology. If you're somebody, and this has a direct connection with, it's directly parallel in the mafia to earning. If you're earning, you're all good, right? If you're bringing in the money, if you're bringing in the people, if you're doing the job of Scientology, you're all good. You are what is called upstat. It's a silly expression, but it means your statistics, your production is up. You are bringing people in. You are making money. You are a good Scientologist. And if you're a good Scientologist, you are protected. And if you're not an earner, if you're not bringing people in, if you're not with the program, you are downstat. Downstat. You are not producing. You're a burden on the organization even. Right? You're not with the program. You are counter intention, other intention. You see how this ties together. So, going back to this page of quotes here, he gives a couple examples of this, but he says, conversely, if a person is doing his job, ethics is considered to be in, and the person is protected by ethics. Now, what was Danny Masterson's job as a celebrity? Bring people into Scientology, talk favorably about Scientology, promote Scientology. Was he doing those things? Yeah, he was to one degree or another. He certainly wasn't going out on the street and bad-mouthing Scientology. And if asked about it, he would tell people, read a book, find out about it. It's good stuff. And he would show up at the yearly Christmas function at Celebrity Center every year and partake in that function to promote and propagate Scientology. So for all intents and purposes, as far as the Church of Scientology was concerned, Danny and his connections, because remember, Danny Masterson is not an individual. He is, or not just an individual person. He is connected with a whole family of Scientologists and celebrities, and there's a big network there. And I keep stressing that because of this exact point. He is somebody who Scientology wants to keep happy because he's somebody who is bringing in the money and bringing in the people. And he's a celebrity, and that affords him a whole other level of status. And, he gets to breathe the rarefied air of Scientology up at the top because he's a celebrity. He matters. These women don't. They're the ones accusing him of crimes, but he's the earner. He's the producer. And Scientology policy, as let's take a look at it again, is crystal clear on this point. Ethics is considered to be in, and the person is protected by ethics. And he gives a couple examples there. And he says here in the third paragraph down, we are not in the business of being good boys and girls. We're in the business of going free and getting the org production roaring. Nothing else is of any interest to ethics but A, getting tech in, getting it run and getting it run right, and B, getting production up and the org roaring along. Therefore, if a staff member is getting production up by having his own statistic excellent, ethics sure isn't interested. But if a staff member isn't producing, shown by his bad statistic for his post, ethics is fascinated with his smallest misdemeanor. In short, a staff member can get away with murder so long as his statistic is up and can't sneeze without a chop if it's down. That's the reference on getting away with murder in Scientology. If you are producing, if you are an upstat, if you are ethical. All of these are synonyms in Scientology. As long as you're producing, you're golden. And if you're not, well, we got an awful lot of toothbrushes to scrub an awful lot of toilets until you get your head clear about whose side of this team you are on. And if you're not on our side, you're against us. And the purpose of ethics is to remove those blocks and barriers to Scientology doing its thing. This is so black and white. This is so cut and dry. And if you and you'll notice in all of this rhetoric and these quotes I've been showing you, nowhere in here is the individual considered or the context of the problem considered. It's your upstat, you get away with it. Your downstat, you suck, and you're going to be scrubbing toilets and much, much worse. And in this case, Masterson was the upstat, and these accusers were the downstats. And they were n-theta. And they made out, therefore, to be the enemies. And that's why they were given short shrift and treated the way that they were, is because they were not upstats. And finally, okay, that all being said, there's one more thing I thought I would show you guys in the time that we have here. And that is another quote. It has been brought up in the public media, not necessarily in the courtroom yet. In the pre-trial it was brought up. And then it has not yet come up in the actual scope of the trial itself. That the women would have actually been violating the rules of Scientology to go to the police, to go to outside authorities, to bring this suit against Masterson. Well, where is that in writing? Well, let's take a look. Here are here's an excerpt again from some of the high crimes of Scientology. These are literally listed and categorized as high crimes. There is nothing more serious you can do in Scientology than commit a high crime. These are also known in Scientology as suppressive acts. In other words, they will get you declared a suppressive person. You will be labeled a suppressive if you're found guilty of these things, and you will get kicked out of the church. You will be ostracized. You will be declared, and they then can feel justified in coming after you and even trying to hurt you or your job or life. And there's a whole list of suppressive acts. This is not the full list of them, but these are some of the ones that apply in this case. And from the point of view of Scientology now, knowingly giving testimony which is false, a generality, or not based on personal knowledge to imperil a Scientologist, public disavowal of Scientology or Scientologists in good standing with Scientology organizations, public statements against Scientology or Scientologists, but not to committees of evidence duly convened. Committees of evidence are internal Scientology justice actions. That has nothing to do with outside law. So public statements against Scientology or Scientologists, even testifying hostily before state or public inquiries into Scientology to suppress it. And of course, as far as Scientology is concerned, if you are in any way testifying or publicly talking about Scientology in any way unfavorable to it, then you're against it, right? Clearly you are counterintention, and you need to be removed. You need to be gotten out of the way. By hook or by crook, by any means possible, you need to be removed off the board. That's what fair gaming is all about. It's all internally consistent within Scientology's processes and policies. And this is how Scientologists think about things, is they think that if you're out there talking trash, making public statements against Scientology, you are suppressive, you are n-theta, you must not be listened to, and you must be stopped. And these are priorities in Scientology. These are not nice ideas. They don't just turn the other cheek, and all of the things I've read to you here are why. So, that's it. That's what I wanted to go over with you today. The report system is extensive. Now, by the way, again, just as an example of the kind of details I'm not getting into today, there's knowledge reports, but there's actually a policy letter which lists out 20 other kinds of reports. There are the system of reporting in Scientology is extensive. And I didn't go over this policy either, but one of the ways that the ethics officers will find targets to go after is who's having the most reports written on them, right? Because they keep the reports in a file. They don't receive it and shred it. They have a file with your name on it. Multiple files after they get bunches and bunches of these reports, and they file them. And if you're getting a thick ethics file, Hubbard says that alone indicates you're the suppressive. Just a thick ethics file as a administrative action. If the ethics officer is looking at a pile full of folders and wondering who's the troublesome source here, it's the one with the thick file. It doesn't matter whether any of those reports are true or not. That's nowhere in Hubbard's policies to go and look at the validity of the reports. What's in his policies is what I've read you today. If they're upstat, ignore the report. If they're downstat, get very busy enforcing Scientology justice processes on the person because they are downstat. The truth of whether they're a good or a bad boy or girl or not doesn't matter. As long as they're earning for Scientology, they're golden. It's crystal clear, just in what I've shown you today. I hope I'm getting my point across to y'all, because this is how Scientology operates. And unfortunately, this was a system I lived in and also enforced myself for many years. So I've been on all ends of this. And it is as horrible and awful as it sounds. Okay. So let me just take a quick look here. Yeah. And of course, in the case of Miscavige, of course he can't get a report written on him. I I tried writing a report on David Miscavige once. It wasn't even a report. I actually just queried an order that he sent. I didn't even write a report on him. I could have, I should have, but I didn't. I just said, hey, this order doesn't really make a lot of sense according to this policy. And within 2 days of me sending that, this is back when I was in Santa Barbara. I wasn't even a Sea Org member yet. I was just a lowly staff member in a podunk little org, minding my own business. And here comes this order from Miscavige. And I thought, well, this is kind of silly. And I queried it. I said, I don't know that this order is correct. And within 2 days, 2 representatives from RTC, from David Miscavige's unit, showed up to let me know that I was a very out ethics little boy and I was going to be punished severely for daring to even question the order. So that's the level of control in Scientology. It's an authoritarian, high control group. There really isn't any other way to describe Scientology. And unfortunately, the membership are so enamored by the dreams and hopes and goals and the pretty talk and the pretty pictures and the idea of being spiritually free and immortal and beyond the problems and difficulties of life. They get so wrapped up in believing that dream that they put up with all of this until, of course, they can't anymore. And that's when they finally break free. And that's how I broke free. That's how Mike Rinder broke free. That's how Leah broke free, right? Is it just got to be too much for us. The dream wasn't real, and the authoritarian control systems were. They were very real, and the punishments were very real, and the degradation and the name calling and the labeling and the control. It's beyond anything you can imagine unless you're in it. But that's the Church of Scientology, and I'm so frustrated right now, and I hope over the coming weeks, as this trial continues to roll out, I am really hopeful that more of what we're talking about here in this stream today will make it into the courtroom, because this is the information that the jury needs. And unfortunately, they should not be seeing this and don't have access to it. But I wanted you guys to, because I wanted you to have the whole backstory. This is what the jury needs to know about, though, because they really need to understand that Scientology is not just another religion. It's not just another belief set of crazy ideas. And you'll notice this entire live stream, I have not once mentioned Xenu or Scientology beliefs. These are the rules of Scientology. This is the you follow this or you're out of here kind of rules. This doesn't have anything to do with belief, right? These control structures and this framework of coercive control that exists in Scientology is awful. And it is not duplicated by other mainstream religions in the same way, right? There's hints of this. There's shades of this in other groups, but it's not as deep and invasive and intrusive and awful as Scientology's. And I hope that today's show might have given some of that across. Okay, so thank you very much for coming around and watching my live stream here today. I really appreciate your viewership. Looks like more than a few of you were on board here today, and I hope that you will find this show entertaining, informative, and educational. That was the purpose of doing it today. And I'm going to wrap up now. I will encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And I will say that please do like this video, of course, and share it around. Lots and lots of people need to know about this if they're following the Masterson trial or want to know anything about Scientology. And, of course, thank you very much, all of you who help support the show today and support the channel through Patreon or PayPal. I really, really, really appreciate it because it's the only thing really that kind of keeps me going. All right. Bye-bye, guys.